Hey, this is Notser, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Tier 7 Italian cruiser, Zara. This is on the public test server, this is 8.7, and I wanted to showcase semi-armor piercing shells, which are brand new for the Italian fleet. The mainline Italians, not the premium Italian cruisers. This is not available to you, they didn't swap it out. Also, the fuel throttle smoke generator, you can probably spy that on the T key. And then, the observant of you probably noticed that the compass in the bottom left corner looks slightly different. That is related to the AA and the priority sector that was updated in 8.7. I will not be covering that in this video, but I will be covering it in a future video, so just keep an eye out for that. So, the fuel throttle smoke generator on screen right now. At Tier 7, it lasts for 25 seconds. It is improved to 40 seconds at Tier 8, 9, and 10. The smoke is instantly created, large enough for the Italian cruiser so it won't be spotted when moving at full speed. Oh yeah, got that glorious horn too. So using this fuel throttle smoke, you can use it a couple ways. You can use it as an aggressive play to move through a gap that you know you would normally be spotted for. It's a little bit harder to do at Tier 7 when compared to the Tier 8, 9, and 10 variant. At Tier 7, I have found a lot of success with the fuel throttle smoke. When an enemy is engaged with me, they sit probably 9.5 to 10 kilometers at least, because smoke firing is 9.3 kilometers, I believe, with the 203s that are equipped to the Zara. But using fuel smoke, when retreating, and you get at least 2 free salvos on the enemy with no return fire, it instantly drops you off detection if you place yourself far enough away that the guns themselves don't bloom out. So it's a very interesting system. The cooldown is very, very long. Probably too long, if I'm honest. I can't incorporate it in much of my play, but I understand why it is very long, because it instantly drops you off detection. And I do mean instantly. You can go full speed, pop it, you will instantly be inside the smoke, and you will not leave the smoke until it's done dissipating. It's interesting because it's sort of an instant cloak mechanic. If you are aware of your smoke firing range with your guns, if you keep the enemy outside of that range and you pop your fuel throttle, they will still be spotted if they fired, or if they're a battleship or they're spotted by something else, but you will not. So you can sort of pause their assault momentarily, instantly. It's a really big deal, and it's probably why the consumable has such a long cooldown, but I really enjoy it. It's an interesting mechanic, and I would like to explore it further, you know, maybe lower the cooldown a little bit more, make it a little bit more active in combat. I'm really liking the fuel throttle smoke, though, and I will like it further, obviously, with the 40 seconds from Tier 8, 9, and 10. Now, let's talk about the semi-armor piercing shell. Note the semi-armor piercing shell did about 8,500. We use fuel throttle smoke, we dropped off detection, switched to AAP, and then what do? We do 7,600 on the broadside. So we actually did less damage with our armor piercing than our semi-armor piercing shell. The semi-armor piercing shell has characteristics of both armor piercing and high explosive. So it has the same penetration over range, which for this example, these are 203 millimeters. It's 54 millimeters of pen. If it slams against any armor that is equal to or less than 54 millimeters, it will do damage to the target. If it is a DD, it will only do 10% damage. The only 2 DDs that I've seen it do full damage to, and I can't verify, it could just be the alpha was so high, but I don't think so. The Kaba, with its 50 millimeters of armor, can't stop it, not at all, and it takes like 10,000 damage per salvo with 8 guns, imagine 15. And then the Hirugamo also took, I think, 7,000 to 8,000 salvos. A little bit shorter in the water, so not as easy to hit with all 8 guns. But still, very effective against those DDs. All the other ones, though, only 10%. It's capped at 10%. Now, you could theorize, use semi or armor piercing. Use semi. Semi does more damage on average for the Italians. It's the shell, the default shell type. So with that 54 millimeters, what's the absolute angle of the target that needs to be presented so that you can pin versus can't? So it's a very extreme angle. I did a lot of testing in the training room. Basically, if the target is presenting a bow on presentation, If you hit the sides of the armor, and it is obviously below 55 millimeters of armor, we're not dealing with that. But if it's below it and the angle is too steep, it will ricochet. But if the angle isn't too steep, it will do damage, and it'll do 30% damage. And what this gameplay loop ends up feeling like, against DDs, you just pump as much as you can, doing 10% damage. There's not much you can do. I tried AP, it was not the choice. The AP shells on the Italians is really a last-ditch effort when presented with too much armor. You don't want to rely on that. Using semi-armor piercing, though, very effective against pretty much all cruisers. Very effective against cruisers. Very heavy salvo. Very high gun velocity. 910 meter per second on the AP. 950 on the semi-armor piercing. So it gets out there very quickly and very effectively. What else is there? 54 millimeters of pin. The gun velocity. The ammo type. The ammo semi does more damage on average than the armor piercing. So, you know, when presented with something like the Algerie, we're just going to fire semi-armor piercing. And we're going to see a good example of when to not use semi-armor piercing or where to aim your guns. Bow and stern are great locations. The superstructure is also a great location globally to aim. Always has, you know, on average, less than 54 millimeters. Where it is not so cut and dry is when you're firing at the waterline and the armor's too thick. And you shouldn't do that. And you have to switch to armor piercing or switch the location of your shells. Look at this example. We hit right in the center of the ship, and it fails to pin because it was presented with greater than 54 millimeters of armor, and now I'm just looking for soft armor flesh. Give me soft armor flesh. So we'll go for the stern. Plenty of penetration for that. But semi-armor piercing against cruisers, pretty much 99% of the armor you should be able to do full damage to. Against battleships, you're going to have to hunt for the superstructure, the bow and stern, the top of the hull, any particular armor location that is below 54. In my estimation, the Italian cruisers are going to be a high skill line because you'll have to memorize this new armor breakpoint to really maximize the damage output. Because, yes, the alphas are incredibly big. I did some testing. At tier 10, with 15 guns, you could conceivably do 20 to 25,000 damage in a single salvo when aiming at the Kremlin superstructure, or any battleship superstructure if all of the guns hit it. That is an insane amount of alpha, but you're going to rush through all of the hit points on each section of that ship rapidly, and then they will take reduced damage. You can't set fire with semi-armor piercing. That's not even a question. It's not possible. But it is a very effective tool dealing with cruisers, dealing with the weak points of battleships, and you can even contribute a little bit of damage against DDs. Against aircraft carriers, as long as you aim at the top of the hull of the aircraft carrier, you know, near the deck, you basically do huge monster alpha broadsides, you know, 7,000 to 8,000. With this ship, let alone the tier 10. So, overall, semi-armor piercing has a very interesting playstyle, one that I'm very excited to explore, and I like that it has a little bit more of a requirement to locate your shells, very different from others. I think that's going to be a very interesting gameplay, and one we might see as sort of a direct counter to some of these cruisers who are so nimble and normally get a lot of overpen with regular armor piercing. Semi, you will not get that. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to check out more of my content, you can click the most recent or the most relevant uploads. You could also choose to subscribe to my channel. We do daily World of Warship videos, first impression, how-to, news, and review related. My North American recruit invite is on the screen. You can take advantage of that. I stream at twitch.tv/Notser. Thank you, have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you next time.